Hello and welcome to this episode of Demystified as we explore home cooking in a modern world. And I'm here with my friend Paul. Hey Paul.
You are Linda and you are here with your friend Paul.
How are you?
I'm always trying to figure out how to respond to that differently every time. I'm alright, how are you?
Very good.
Yeah, a bit of I have to take some blame for some technical difficulties, sort of.
I think I shared in that.
Yeah.
I think I did share.
So we did do a podcast on Friday.
Yes.
But what happened was
and
after...
it was brilliant. It was the best one we've done.
I don't know that that's true. But yeah, for some reason the sound turned off. I always find it funny when you see guys doing podcasts on YouTube and stuff like that, which is where we will start posting them. They've always got these pro microphones and the headphones on, and I'm sitting there going, geez, we're amateur.
I know, we're really light on kid. I did realise that when we discovered the error that we'd had 20 minutes of film
and 5 minutes of audio.
46 seconds of audio. And I did think maybe we should investigate that more, but it's not the thing that neither you and I do.
No, so I mean,
help.
I'm not sure.
No.
What we just need to do is make sure that your laptop doesn't go into sleep mode.
Yeah, that would help.
When we're just using it to power a microphone, because that's all we were using it for. So
we just need to, but we're sorry about that.
Yeah, so this is a catch up, sort of.
Kind of.
Sort
and
of.
What I did want to talk about, because you and I in that podcast, but it is something that I've since done at home, following the issue of my first bake of the Anzacs, and you talked about what might have gone wrong with them in terms of how they spread.
Yeah.
The thing that you hit on.
Do we know that everyone listening knows the backstory?
Well,
or did we
assume that I made some Anzacs that weren't great, and I asked
No, they were
for
good.
help. Yeah, but they weren't like yours.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting sort of topic we talked about, and I want to explore it again for now that we have sound. But it was, and you talked a lot about the importance of oven temperatures, and we'd never discussed that before.
No.
And it's certainly...
Well, not so much we've discussed...
the preheating.
The preheating of your oven.
Because I had... The next batch I made, I heated the oven for the required time that you suggested, which I'll give you a chance to get a word in a minute. Yeah. And I must admit, in the bottom oven and in the my normal standard oven and in my combi steam oven, it made a big difference.
Yep.
And they were a big success. So
first thing to remind people of is the initial... So when you baked the Anzacs for my birthday, the initial feedback that you gave me was that the recipe's too wet. Do you have some commentary around?
I was hoping that you'd
before we get into the I'm mentally no older. I am still a child that needs a win.
Well, I did realise that at the time when I said the recipe was really wet, and I was really pleased that I'd actually remembered to wet my hands when I was rolling them into little balls.
But the second batch?
I didn't need to do that because in the first batch, my faux pas that I did put my hand up and I didn't volunteer the information. I could have kept it quiet, and next time I'm going to have a word to myself about that. But I did volunteer that I misread how much golden syrup to put in.
Yeah.
And I put in effectively 30% more.
Yeah, a third more.
So I did put in 160 grams rather than 120, but it's still...
Yeah, but that was a contributing factor to what were a couple of things that gave you the end result that you got. Yeah. So the end result that you got there was nothing wrong with those biscuits, right? They were just very flat. They were very chewy, but that's how I like them. And so what we were looking to do was, they were.
They were like little pancakes.
Yeah. So, but even pancakes have some height to them.
Yeah, these ones.
These were steamrolled Anzacs.
They were. They were.
Half the thing.
So happy birthday, Paul.
Yeah. Well, we ate them, so they were good. Yeah. But half the thing with something like this, and it's no different to what I've done today, is okay. So you've got X end result and you're looking to investigate as to why it didn't work out exactly how you wanted it. So we explored a lot of things, and one of them, back to your original point, being preheating your oven. So my point to you was, although we're only cooking at 160-ish, I can't remember.
160, 8 to 9 minutes.
160 degrees for 8 to 9 minutes. You had sort of indicated to me that your oven was sort of maybe going for 8 to 10 minutes, give or take.
Yes.
And
I
then
was speed replace. I didn't put them all in at one batch.
No. But I'm talking about the initial heat.
No, it was only 5 to 10.
Okay, so 5 to 10 minutes. And so what my thinking was that the oven's probably not at temp. So what's happening is while the biscuits are baking, because it's not at temp, it's sort of not setting almost not setting the shape. So what's happening is that the oven's still not at the correct temperature, and therefore it doesn't have a chance to set the shape before it's baked, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So what we then got on to talking about in the podcast that we didn't record.
But if you're a good lip reader, you might post
was preheating and the importance of preheating. So a lot of manufacturers will have a fast preheat in an oven. Now, this varies across oven cavity sizes, right? So in America, you have 30-inch, which is about 76 centimetres. Standard European, Australian, whatever you like, we do 60 and 90 centimetre wide, 60 by 60 and 45 by 60. So we have various different sizes of ovens, and within those ovens there'll be various varying heating elements, and some manufacturers will put in what they term or coin, a fast preheat function. So the idea being is that a lot of different elements come on together to get your oven up to temperature quicker, so you're not waiting as long before you cook something, right? So it's kind of trying to reduce your cooking time because you're not waiting as long for your oven to heat up. Now, while all that's well and good, and your thermostat in your oven or the little red light or whatever it is may switch off after 5-8 minutes of a so-called fast preheat and tell you it's up to temperature, what I can tell you from experience is, regardless of the cavity size, regardless of the cavity type, whether it be stainless steel, enamel, and they all react slightly differently, you are 110% better off preheating your oven, regardless of size or type of oven, for 20 minutes. Now, that's a bit different when you're cooking with standalone steam. Okay, so we deal a lot in steam. And you don't necessarily need it because you're not trying to warm the cavity in the same way. You're using the steam that's being pushed into the oven and generated to cook the food. You're not reliant on the cavity to hold temperature. In the scenario of regular convection cooking, you are reliant on the cavity to hold temperature. And if it hasn't had a chance to get up to temperature properly and you add food, what we call food load, so you add volume to the oven, you then drain it a little bit more of that temperature and the chance to reach its optimal temperature. So 20 minutes will change everything, I think. 20 minutes gives you the truest temperature that you want to start cooking at. 5 minutes will give you, because what ovens do is if you have a set point, let's say the most general one being 180 degrees or 375 Fahrenheit, okay, general common oven temperature, manufacturers will quite often go above those temperatures, whether you've got a fast preheat function or not. So the oven will kick up above that temperature to try and get some warmth in the cavity, and then it drops back down, and sometimes it'll drop back down below your desired temperature, and then the thermostat kicks in and goes, hey, it's getting too cold, and turns the elements back on to get back up to temperature. Now, so it goes through these ebbs and flows, right? And initially it's a really high heat, and then it drops down, and then it comes back up, and then it evens itself out, and to get that perfect evened out temperature and consistency and warmth in the enamels and warmth in the racks and everything else, 20 minutes every day of the week.
And it worked. It made a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, having the correct ratio in the recipe also matters. But yes, having a consistent oven temperature, and when you're doing multiple tray cooking like you did, whether you put in 1 or 2 trays it doesn't matter, right? So in the scenario of you doing a big batch of Anzacs, quite happily in your bottom oven, and I know the oven, you could have put 2 trays. And then you could have removed those 2 and replaced it with another 2. But the trick there is for mine. Now, it doesn't happen as often with ovens these days, but back in the day, we would allow about 24 degrees for every time the oven door was open, loss in temperature. That's in a commercial kitchen.
Okay.
So 24 degrees is a lot. Right, so you allow a dramatic drop. So think about it. Sometimes the tea towel isn't right. You faff around. You open the door. You've got it sort of slightly open. You pull one tray out. You go put it on your kitchen bench, and it's sort of wobbling around a bit. And you kind of make adjustments to that, and you have a look at your biscuits, and then you go grab the other tray. Meanwhile, the oven door's open. So what you're better off doing in the scenario of, let's say you're doing a 4-tray cook, but you're doing it two times going to the oven. So you open the door, close the door, open the door, close the door. I think you're better off waiting about 5 minutes before you add the second tray, the second 2 trays. So preheat 20 minutes. In the case of the Anzacs, preheat 20 minutes. So that gives you, you can complete that recipe in 20 minutes, right? So before you start the recipe, I would be turning your oven on. Yeah, even before you've weighed out your ingredients, like turn the oven on. In the case of the Anzacs, let's say preheat. It's going to take you 20 minutes to put everything together. It's going to take you 20 minutes, and then roll them out. You've got your 2 trays ready. You've got 4 trays. You've got 2 trays ready to go. Open the door, both trays in, close the door. 8 to 9 to 12 minutes, whatever the recipe says. They're baked. Pull them out. Take them out. Close the door. Wait 5 minutes, and then add the next sequence of trays.
On the day that I made the second batch, and
did you like that really long-winded explanation?
No, but that was why it worked when I listened to it the first time. I heard that, and we've never discussed preheating the oven like that before, ever.
We've talked about preheating with steam.
Yes, but on the second batch that I made on Sunday, so I put the oven on, then I melted the butter and the golden syrup, then I weighed out all my dry ingredients and rolled, and I kept noticing the little temperature button, and I noticed that it had gone completely on the bottom oven. The top oven, which is my combi steam oven, the small 45 centimetre, that took way less time to get to temp, always does. And in the bottom oven, with the 2 trays in, it still needed another 2 minutes to get them all that lovely golden brown, dark.
Which is why in recipes you see a time frame.
Yes.
You never see
because the recipe's a guide, Paul.
Do that very good. But you never see a to the minute.
No. And
set for 12 minutes exactly. Like most recipe writers will quote, not put a 5-minute grace period in. And remember, this sort of stuff matters more for shorter cooks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom oven took an extra 2.
Yeah.
But the top, the combi steam oven, bang on 8. I thought, oh no, I've let them cook too long. Like bang on.
Yeah.
And because it's the steam and the stainless steel cavity.
Using the efficiency of steam, which is a great conductor of heat. Yeah. So you're working with 2 different heats of sorts, right? You're still working with fan forced, but you're working with 2 different heats. One is more efficient, being steam, and while 2 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, in the scale of the recipe, it's, I don't know, you're better at percentages than I am, but it's 20% of the time of the recipe. But that preheating matters more in cooks that are shorter. Oh, okay, it's 25%. The accountant is telling me. But cooks that are shorter, it matters more. So if you're only going to be cooking in your oven for less than half an hour, whatever it is, right? Whatever you might be doing, you are best off to give it a longer preheat. If you're doing a 3 or 4 hour braise, you can get away with it. Yeah. But there's some music playing in the office. But yeah, so the shorter cooks matter more for preheat. Linda's having a giggle at the music. Anyway, so yes, there's preheating, but with steam, and I know we've talked about this before, when you're standalone steam cooking, and I have been in a lot of demonstrations and witnessed a lot of different manufacturers do it, and say you don't need to preheat when you're steam cooking. I fundamentally disagree. Like, there's a few things that I think you start from cold in an oven. This is a handful, right? A handful of things that you put into an oven cold. Some roasting programs and roasting functionality in ovens you kind of have to, because they're staged. So you might start with a grill or a broil element to seal it, and then it kicks itself over, right? So that's fine. It's a hybrid between a fully functioning recipe program and a pre-program for whatever you want to use it for. But in the case of steam, very rarely would I suggest that you don't have steam generated in your oven. Everyone says, when you open the door, you lose too much steam. But you've already got the cavity warm, you've got things warm, the steam generator's going, it's full of water, everything's sort of cycling already. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not preheating.
We've seen a few recipes over the time where people suggest you bung it in, put it all in together, and we know that doesn't always work for mixing all food types when you cook at different temperatures. So, I'm not sure why people would suggest that. I don't know that that's a good selling point, because...
And the stupid thing is that realistically, even in a large cavity oven, steam takes very little to heat. It's not the 20 minutes that you're doing with your regular convection fan-forced oven. It's far less. So it doesn't take that long to get the temperature in there. The other one, which I've been noticing a return of recently, because I've been doing a lot of fishing around to see what different brands and stuff are doing, and I'm noticing this return of pasta cooking in your steam oven.
I have noticed that as well on trend, and I'm thinking...
Okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've visited this topic, maybe not on the podcast before.
Yes.
Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what you said last time as well.
So while I understand everyone wanting to get value out of an appliance, right, and get the maximum that you can out of the appliance, the question I would always ask is, by doing that, are you making the end result better? So is the pasta going to be, if the pasta is going to be significantly better by cooking it in a steam oven and steaming it, then fine. I'm all for it. But I refuse to believe for 1 second that you get the same results from a pasta cooked in a steam oven, starting from cold, with cold water. Like, when do you put pasta in cold water? And the thing is that while the time is similar, according to what I've watched, and I'm not going to try this, by the way, because I just fundamentally disagree with it, so I'm not going to do it myself, but you're constantly having to go back in there and fish around with the pasta to make sure it's not getting gluey and stuck together. Now, on the stovetop, yes, you need to stir your pasta, but you've also got movement in the water, which is sort of helping you along the way there. You stir your pasta, 3 times, 4 times during its cooking cycle? It's there, you do it, whoop-de-doo. But in a steam oven, there's far less movement in the water. And so the likelihood of you ending up with gluggy, sticky pasta is far, far higher. So you're going to have to monitor it a lot more. So why are you making something that is pretty simple? Get a pot of water, boil it, add some salt, put the pasta in. I just don't... I don't understand.
Because when I saw this recently on a post from someone, I wondered, you've got cold water, you've put it into your steam oven, you've got to heat that water to cook.
Yeah.
That's going to take longer like that than on a pot. And then you have to cook your pasta.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. When we looked at adding moisture to rice when we made the risotto, I could understand how much better that would be, but that was a bit different because it was all enclosed and it was absorbing the water.
Yeah.
And years ago we talked about this, about how it was so much better than making risotto. For me, that was different. I really like.
I still put a footnote there that it's not traditional, right?
No, but
it's a good hybrid.
It's a really easy, nice way, gentle way of cooking it, so you don't have that.
It's a good hybrid risotto, I think, is what we can call it.
And it's quick,
yeah,
and you can guarantee the time.
Yeah.
Down to the second with that one. But I looked at this and I thought, why?
Yeah.
Especially with, I've as you know, I've been having a couple of lessons with the lovely Rachel when we could, and the gang about making fresh pasta, and that takes 2 to 3 minutes to cook.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, we've done
mine because I haven't made it at home yet. But I just thought, wow, that's really, why would you put it into a steam oven?
But I've done fresh pasta in the steam oven, but they were tortellini or ravioli, so they were treated like a dumpling.
Yeah.
Slightly different, right? And I did it as a trial, but I'm talking specifically about this sort of convenience type packet pasta, which I'm not anti. Packet pasta's good. I think you get some really good starch out of the pasta water, which helps thicken up your sauces and stuff like that. And I think you miss all of that by doing this. So brings me back to my original point. You're not making it better. So why do it? I mean, I know we're all trying to, a lot of people are trying to sell the appliances, but I think you're selling false,
Well, even what we said before in our first topic about preheating the oven, if you've got to keep opening your steam oven to move the pasta around and then close it again and wait, you're going to take even longer than maybe, the few minutes on the stovetop.
Yeah, and I think what they're doing is they're allowing time for heat up of the water, the pasta to actually start cooking. So there's a time allowance being made, because I've seen people do a standard sort of spaghetti, which would be between 8 and 9 minutes on your stovetop in a pot of boiling water, and they're putting 15, 16 minutes. And they're saying it's convenient. I just can't see how it's more convenient. No. I just, for the life of me, I can't see. So if anyone out there wants to comment, wants to send us an email, wants to explain it, like anyone from any manufacturer, I'd be really interested to know. Well, answer the question then. How is it better?
Yeah. How was it better? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll put it out there and see. Yeah.
But anyway, so preheating with steam, I think is a yes, and preheating for regular convection oven cooking,
Well, it made a huge difference, and the Anzacs were more consistent, the colour was better, and they held their shape better in the second batch.
The only thing I will say as far as the preheating thing, and I'll come back to that, is a lot of ovens these days, including yours, have got grill elements or broil elements built into the top. Quite often you will start those cold, because what happens is you need that lit up glowing red radiant heat element to actually start the caramelization or the colouring process of whatever it is you're trying to get colour on. Because these days, as opposed to the old days when you grilled with the door open, you grill with the door closed, and what happens is you reach a certain temperature and the thermostat turns that element off. So it's saying that the oven's up to temperature. Okay. It doesn't know which element you're using, but it's telling you the oven's up to temperature, so I don't need to turn it on. So generally with broiling or grilling, you'll start cold, but everything else.
Okay, so if you were because our bottom oven is how we make toast, because we don't have a toaster. I think I've said that before.
Yeah.
But you would put that grill, if you're going to use the grill or the broiler, you would put everything in cold. So if you're using sausages or steak, would you put them in cold?
Yeah, because what happens is that heating element, being the only exposed heating element in your oven, you need it to come on and have that initial very high temperature to get the cooking process started. And when elements come on, now various ovens will do it differently. Some will have a medium, high, low grill setting. Some will have a temperature setting. Various ones do it differently. But the point being is that you need that heat element to turn on to start the browning process. If you turn it on, I guarantee you, go home and try this, right? Turn on your grill element, close the door. After, because most thermostats are towards the top of the oven as well, so top, center, back is where most of them are located. What will happen is after about 5 or maybe 6 or 7 minutes, you will see that glow will come off the element because it's saying, well, we're up to temperature. So you need that radiant heat. When grill elements or exposed elements come on, they don't just generate about 200 degrees, it's about 600 degrees. And that's how you get that browning. So next time you do your toast...
Crikey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next time you do your toast...
Or sausages.
Or sausages. Why are you doing sausages like that? Anyway, next time you do your toast, cold in, turn it on, I bet you it takes you half the time.
Well, the last time Dougie cooked sausages were in the grill and I said to him when I clean them, clean the trays, we're not using this oven for 6 more months.
Yeah.
Because I hate cleaning ovens.
Yeah. But yeah, so grilling's fractionally, I mean, it's a different cooking method anyway, all up. But don't preheat your grill if you're trying to get colour down on something. So you've got a surface that you're trying to colour, don't preheat it, go in cold.
Okay.
Turn your grill on and you'll see it. It glows red, right? We've all seen it. But if you do that and do a preheat in the same method, it will switch off.
Well, there you are. See, who knew there was so much to talk about?
Sorry, boring.
No,
guys.
but it's not. But I didn't know any of this. Yeah. I did not know this, and we've never, ever discussed it, you and I.
Yeah.
And it's never been brought up as a possible reason. Is there a French phrase for reason for my muck-up?
Yeah, but I can't say it.
Oh,
There's probably too many swear words in it.
Okay. Well, as you know, I speak French like a native.
Yeah, of course you do.
But no. English. But okay. Well, I
but half the thing with and like I say, half the thing with cooking. And look, I did a lamb today, which is fine, right? It's nice. It's good. It's edible. Tastes good. But I did it partly to try out a very old technique, which I haven't done in years, and I think a lot of people have forgotten. And the other part was to experiment a little bit to see impacts over a very long period of time. The end result is fine, but it's not good enough. So, coming back to the Anzac story, sometimes when you mess up, it's actually beneficial.
Yeah.
Because it makes you better the next time. Like, I know we all say, you learn from your mistakes. All of that sort of palaver. Yeah, that's true. But if you don't look at the reasons why...
You don't own up to your mistakes, like the 160 grams in golden syrup rather than 120. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So that's why it was interesting, and that's why I wanted to revisit it today, because I thought...
Well, this is the second time we've revisited it because...
And I might retain it more this time, but I did actually learn a lot, and it did change the way that I made those biscuits, and I was really happy. Took them to my beautiful friends for the weekend when we caught up, and as we were packing up all the food to, because we always take too much, and, the plate of Anzacs was like, oh no, these are staying, you can take some of the other stuff back, but these are ours. And so they were a big hit. And they're an old-fashioned type of biscuit. And when I took them around on Sunday, everyone pounced. Even the kids were like, oh, I forgot how much we like these. Yeah. So it's funny how some of those, sometimes, things that you haven't made for a while.
And sometimes the super simple stuff.
Exactly. Because they really are super easy to make.
Yeah.
And
really, look, we're not starting an Anzac biscuit baking company.
No, we're not. And I'm not, not by any stretch.
But the thing, it also shows you that if you get a good understanding of like how to do some simple stuff and do it properly, then what you explore the next time may well be better. Yeah,
exactly. And why? And so now I know I timed them on the weekend from preheating the oven to finishing. The whole thing was about 37 minutes, which means that, I thought that was a really good time. If I think I've got 45 minutes to waste.
Yeah.
make some bickies, sets everybody up, nice.
There you go.
Well, there you are. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And good to see you again, and we will be in touch.
Okay.
So happy cooking, and thank you, and don't forget, preheat your oven for 20 minutes unless you're using the grill or the broiler, in which case go in cold. That's the lesson from today.
Subscribe to the podcast.
Yes. And,
that's the other lesson.
Yes,
see you,
subscribe
Linda.
to the podcast. Take care. Bye, Paul.
Bye.
Happy cooking, everybody. Thanks for listening to this podcast as we explore home cooking in a modern world. We'd love you to subscribe, and for more information, please go to our website, cookingwithsteam.com.